Hey guys, welcome to the first tale of our stormy night, the Whispering Pines. Before we begin, imagine yourself tucked into bed, the weight of the day slipping away as the sound of heavy rain taps against your window. You're safe, warm, wrapped in blankets, but maybe, just maybe, there's something out there in the storm waiting to be heard. Take a deep breath, let the world fade, and let's drift into the dark pines of northern Maine. The rain was relentless that night, hammering the roof of the old cabin like 1,000 tiny fists. I was alone, or so I thought, nestled in a remote corner of Aroostook County, Maine, where the nearest neighbor was miles away. The cabin belonged to my uncle, a reclusive man who left it to me after his sudden death last spring. He had always spoken of the pines around the property, tall, ancient trees that seemed to lean in close, whispering secrets to anyone who'd listen. I'd laughed it off as his eccentricity, but now, sitting by the flickering fire, I wasn't so sure. The storm had rolled in just after dusk, turning the sky a bruised purple. I'd driven up from Bangor to clear out the cabin, maybe spend a weekend sorting through his things. It was October, and the air carried that crisp, earthy scent of fallen leaves and damp soil. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows, and every now and then a branch would scrape against the roof, sharp and deliberate, like nails on a chalkboard. I tried to focus on the task at hand, sorting through a box of my uncle's journals. They were filled with cryptic notes, sketches of the surrounding forest, and strange symbols I couldn't decipher. One entry, dated a year ago, caught my eye. The pines speak at night. They know what happened to her. Don't listen too long. I frowned, turning the page, but the rest was blank. Her? Who was he talking about? A loud crack split the air outside, and I jumped, nearly dropping the journal. Just a branch, I told myself, heart pounding. The rain was coming down harder now, a steady roar that drowns out the crackle of the fire. But beneath it, I heard something else. A low, rhythmic sound, like a whisper carried on the wind. I strained to listen, telling myself it was just the storm playing tricks. But it was there, faint and insistent, weaving through the rain. Come, come, come. I stood, my legs shaky, and crossed to the window. The glass was fogged, streaked with rivulets of water, but I could just make out the dark shapes of the pines swaying in the storm. They seemed closer than they had during the day, their branches reaching toward the cabin like skeletal fingers. I wiped the glass with my sleeve, squinting into the darkness. Nothing. Just trees and rain. But then, a flash of lightning illuminated the yard, and for a split second, I saw it. A figure standing among the pines, tall, impossibly thin, with long, pale limbs that seemed to blend into the rain. Its head was tilted, as if listening, and its eyes? God, its eyes were like twin voids, blacker than the night itself. I stumbled back, my breath catching in my throat. The lightning faded, and the figure was gone. I told myself it was a trick of the light, a shadow cast by the storm, but my hands were trembling as I locked the door and checked the windows. The cabin felt smaller now, the walls pressing in, the fire's warmth no match for the chill creeping up my spine. I sat back down, pulling the blanket tighter around me, and tried to focus on the journal, but the words blurred together, and that whispering sound, it was louder now, seeping through the cracks in the walls. Come, come, come. I grabbed my phone, thinking I'd call someone, anyone, but there was no signal. Of course there wasn't. This was the middle of nowhere. The wind screamed and the cabin groaned under its force. I tried to laugh it off, to tell myself I was being paranoid. Maybe it was just the isolation getting to me. I'd been alone too long, and the storm was making everything worse. Then I heard it. A soft thump against the front door. Not a knock, not a branch, but something heavy, deliberate. I froze, my heart hammering so loud I could feel it in my ears. I stared at the door, waiting, praying it was nothing. Thump. Again. Slower this time, like someone or something was testing the door's strength. I grabbed the fireplace poker, its weight, cold and reassuring in my hand, and crept toward the door. The rain pounded harder, masking any other sounds, but I could feel it, that presence, just on the other side. My hands hovered over the doorknob, every instinct screaming at me to stay back. Don't, I said to myself, my voice barely audible. But curiosity, that damnable human flaw, got the better of me. I turned the knob just a crack and peered into the storm. The porch was empty, the rain lashing the boards. But there, at the edge of the light cast by the cabin's windows, I saw footprints in the mud. Long, narrow, with toes that looked more like claws. They led from the pines to the porch and stopped right at the door. I slammed it shut, locking it with shaking hands, and backed away. My mind raced, trying to rationalize what I'd seen. Maybe it was an animal, a bear or a moose, distorted by the rain. But bears didn't have toes like that, and moose didn't whisper. The fire was dying now, the logs reduced to glowing embers. I didn't dare go outside for more wood, not with those footprints out there. I sat on the couch, clutching the poker, and tried to focus on the rain, the one constant that felt safe. But it wasn't safe. Nothing was. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time felt slippery, like the rain itself. The whispering returned, louder now, and it wasn't just one voice. It was many, overlapping, a chorus of murmurs that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. I pressed my hands to my ears, but it didn't help. The voices were inside my head now, pulling at me, urging me to go outside. Come, see her. Her. That word again. I thought of my uncle's journal, his cryptic warning. Who was she? I flipped through the pages again, desperate for answers. One entry near the back was written in a shaky hand, as if he'd been terrified when he wrote it. Her name was Eliza. She was taken by the pines. They keep her still. Don't follow the whispers. Eliza. That name sparked a vague memory, Something my uncle had mentioned years ago about a local girl who'd vanished in these woods decades ago. The town called it a tragedy, a runaway case, but there were rumors, whispers of something darker. I dismissed them as small town folklore, but now a loud crash came from the back of the cabin, like glass shattering. I spun around, the poker raised, my breath coming in short gasps. The kitchen window was broken, rain pouring in, and the wind carried that same whispering chant. I ran to the kitchen, my socks slipping on the wet floor, and I saw it. A handprint on the shattered glass, long and thin, with fingers that didn't bend right. I backed away, my mind screaming at me to run.
Stormy Night Stories, Tale 2, The Last Shift. Hey guys, welcome to the second tale of our stormy night, The Last Shift. Picture yourself cozy in bed, the rain drumming softly on your window, a gentle reminder that you're safe, warm, tucked away from the world. But out there, in the dark, some places don't feel so safe, especially on a night like this. Take a slow, deep breath. Let the day melt away, and let's step into the fluorescent glow of a lonely gas station in rural Ohio. The neon sign buzzed faintly, its red and blue letters flickering against the rain-slicked pavement. Mike's Quick Stop, open 24/7. I'd been working the night shift here for 3 months, just outside Chillicothe, Ohio, where the highway stretched into nothingness, and the only visitors after midnight were truckers and the occasional lost soul. Tonight, the storm was keeping even them away, leaving me alone with the hum of the coolers and the patter of rain on the roof. I leaned on the counter, flipping through a dog-eared magazine, the clock ticking past 2 a.m. The store was a time capsule, faded linoleum, racks of stale chips, and a coffee machine that hadn't been cleaned since the Bush administration. I didn't mind the job, though. It was quiet, predictable, just me, the radio playing soft country tunes, and the storm outside, turning the world into a blurry watercolor. I just started restocking this cigarette display when the bell above the door chimed. I glanced up, expecting another weary trucker, but no one was there. The door was still swinging, rain blowing in, pooling on the floor. I frowned, stepping around the counter to check outside. The lot was empty, the pumps glowing faintly in the downpour. Just the wind, I figured, pushing the door open. I locked it behind me, better safe than sorry. Back at the counter, I noticed the security monitor flickering, the grainy black and white feed showing the lot, the pumps, and the road beyond. Something caught my eye. A shadow, just at the edge of the frame, moving too smoothly to be a person. I leaned closer, squinting, but it was gone. Probably just the rain messing with the camera. Still, my skin prickled, like I was being watched. I shook it off, turning up the radio to drown out the unease, but then I heard it. A soft tap, tap, tap against the glass. Not the door this time, but the big window beside the counter. I froze, my hand hovering over a pack of Marlboros. The rain was heavy, sure, but this was different, deliberate, like someone tapping a fingernail against the pane. I turned slowly, my heart kicking up a notch. The window was a wall of black, reflecting the store's fluorescent lights, but I could just make out the shape of the rain outside. No one was there. I stepped closer, my breath fogging the glass, and peered out. Nothing but darkness and the endless curtain of rain. Tap, tap, Tap. Louder now, coming from the other side of the store. I spun around, scanning the windows, but they were empty. My pulse was racing now, the radio's twang doing nothing to calm me. I grabbed the flashlight from under the counter, its weight solid in my hand, and checked the locks again. Everything was secure, but that tapping, it wouldn't stop. It moved, circling the store, now at the back window, now at the side, like someone was testing every entry point. Hey, my viewers, are you still there? Before we continue the best part, don't forget to comment number 1 if you feel interesting or I am still here listening. Okay, cut it out, I muttered, more to myself than anyone else. I flicked on the flashlight, aiming it through the window. The beam cut through the rain, illuminating the lot. But there was nothing, no one. Just the pumps, the road, and the dark fields beyond. I was about to turn away when I saw it. A footprint in the mud near the dumpster, too big to be human, with toes that spread too wide like something webbed. I backed away, my mouth dry. The tapping stopped, replaced by a low hum, not from the coolers or the radio, but from somewhere outside. It was faint at first, like a distant engine, but it grew, vibrating in my chest, making the glass tremble. I switched off the radio, the silence deafening, and listened. The humming wasn't mechanical, it was alive. A chorus of voices, too low to make out, weaving together like a hymn. I checked the security monitor again, my hands shaking. The feed was clearer now, showing the lot, the pumps, and something else. A figure, just beyond the light, standing perfectly still. It was tall, hunched, its limbs too long, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. The rain seemed to slide around it like it wasn't fully there. I blinked, and the screen flickered, the figure gone. The hum grew louder, and now I could hear words in it, faint but unmistakable. Stay, stay, stay. I grabbed my phone, intending to call my boss, the cops, anyone, but the screen was dead. Not out of battery, dead, like it had been fried. The lights in the store flickered, the fluorescents buzzing like angry bees. I backed toward the counter, my flashlight beam darting around the room. The tapping started again, faster now, coming from all sides, like a dozen hands pounding the glass. I don't know why I did it, but I shouted, "Who's there? What do you want?" My voice cracked, echoing in the empty store. The tapping stopped, and for a moment, there was nothing but the rain. Then, a voice, clear, soft, and impossibly close, like it was whispering in my ear, "You." I spun around, the flashlight beam slicing through the air, but the store was empty. My heart was hammering, so hard I thought it might burst. I grabbed the keys to the back room, thinking I could lock myself in until morning, but as I turned, I saw it, the figure from the monitor standing outside the window, inches from the glass. It wasn't human. Its skin was gray, slick like wet clay, and its eyes were hollow, glowing faintly like moonlight on water. Its mouth opened too wide, revealing rows of needle-like teeth, and the humming poured out, filling the store with that awful, living sound. I stumbled back, tripping over a display of energy drinks, and the cans clattered across the floor. The thing didn't move, just watched me, its head tilting further like it was curious. The lights flickered again, plunging the store into darkness for a split second. When they came back on, it was gone. But the humming didn't stop. It was inside now, coming from the back of the store, near the stock room. I didn't think. I just ran, grabbing the keys and sprinting for the back door. The humming followed me, growing louder, the voices clearer. Stay with us forever. I fumbled with the lock, my hands slick with sweat, and burst out into the rain. The cold hit me like a slap, but I didn't stop, running across the lot toward my car. The humming was everywhere now, in the air, in my head, pulling at me like a tide. I reached the car, yanking the door open, and dove inside. The keys were in my pocket, thank God, and I jammed them into the ignition, the engine roaring to life. I glanced back at the store, and there it was, standing under the neon sign, its body swaying slightly like it was dancing to the rain. Its eyes locked on mine, and for a moment I felt it. Not just fear, but a pull, like it wanted me to stay, to join it. I floored the gas, the tires screeching as I peeled out onto the highway. The rain blurred the windshield, but I didn't care. I drove, the hum fading with every mile until it was just the rain again, steady and relentless. I didn't stop until I reached Chillicothe, pulling into the first lit parking lot I found, a diner, its windows warm and inviting. I sat there, shaking.
Hey guys, you still there, listening to me in the dark? Haven't drifted off to sleep yet, have you? Welcome to the third and final tale of our stormy night, the Forgotten Ward. Picture yourself snug in bed, the rain tapping gently on your window, lulling you into that cozy space between awake and dreaming. You're safe, warm, but maybe, just maybe, there's a place out there in the storm where the past doesn't let go. Take a slow, deep breath, let the world slip away, and let's wander into the shadowed halls of an abandoned hospital in upstate New York. The rain was a steady roar against the cracked windows of St. Agnes Hospital, a crumbling relic on the outskirts of Syracuse, New York. I was there on a dare, of all things. My friends, Jake and Sarah, had bet me $50 I wouldn't spend the night in the old place, said to be haunted since it shut down in the 90s. I wasn't for ghost stories, but money was tight, and the idea of proving them wrong felt good. Besides, it was just an empty building, right? Nothing but dust and memories. I had arrived just before dusk, my flashlight beam cutting through the gloom of the hospital's lobby. The air was thick with the smell of mold and something sharper, like old medicine gone sour. The storm had followed me, turning the sky black and making the place feel even more isolated. My footsteps echoed on the chipped tile floor, and every now and then a gust of wind rattled the windows, sending a shiver down my spine. Jake and Sarah had dropped me off, promising to pick me up at dawn. They laughed as they drove away, their headlights swallowed by the rain. I'd set up camp in the lobby, spreading my sleeping bag on the floor and cracking open a thermos of coffee. The plan was simple: stay until morning, snap a few photos for proof, and collect my $50. Easy. But as the night wore on, the hospital didn't feel so empty. It started small, a creak from the hallway, like someone stepping on a loose board. I ignored it, chalking it up to the storm. But then came the whispers, soft and scattered, like voices carried on the wind. I couldn't make out the words, but they were there, drifting from the direction of the stairwell that led to the upper floors.
I grabbed my flashlight, more to reassure myself than anything else, and pointed it toward the stairs. The beam caught faded signs pointing to the maternity ward, the ICU, and something called Ward C. I didn't remember reading about Ward C in the Urban Explorer blogs I checked before coming. Curiosity tugged at me, but so did a nagging sense of unease. Still, I wasn't here to chicken out. The whispers grew louder as I climbed the stairs, my sneakers squeaking on the damp steps. The air grew colder, heavier, like I was wading through something thick. At the top, a rusted sign hung crookedly, Ward C, restricted access. The door was ajar, swaying slightly in the draft. I pushed it open, the hinges groaning, and stepped into a long, dark hallway. The ward was a maze of peeling paint and overturned gurneys, the walls stained with watermarks that looked disturbingly like faces when the light hit them just right. The whispers were clearer now, a chorus of soft voices, overlapping, urgent. Find, find, find. I told myself it was just the wind whistling through broken windows, but my skin prickled and my breath came in short, shallow bursts. I moved deeper into the ward, my flashlight beam darting across doors labeled with numbers and faded names. One caught my eye, room C17, patient records. The door was locked, but the wood was so rotted that a good shove popped it open. Inside was a small office, shelves lined with dusty files and medical charts. I pulled one at random, the paper brittle under my fingers. It was a patient record from 1987 for a woman named Margaret Cole. The notes were clinical, detached, admitted for severe psychosis, claims hearing voices, claims Ward C is alive, restrained for safety. I frowned, flipping through more files. They were all similar. Patients, mostly women, admitted to Ward C for hysteria, delusions, or unexplained behavior. The last entries always noted the same thing: transferred to long-term care. No further contact. I was about to close the file when I saw a Polaroid tucked between the pages. It showed a woman, maybe 30, her eyes wide open with terror, her wrists strapped to a bed. Scrawled on the back, in shaky handwriting, were the words, "They won't let me leave." My stomach twisted. I shoved the photo back into the file, my hands shaking. The whispers were louder now, coming from all around me, and they weren't saying "find" anymore. They were saying my name. Emma. 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 I dropped the file, the papers scattering across the floor, and backed out of the room. The hallway seemed longer now, the shadows deeper, like the hospital was stretching itself around me. My flashlight flickered, the beam dimming for a moment before snapping back. I heard a new sound, a slow, dragging scrape, like something heavy being pulled across the floor. I turned, my heart pounding, and saw it at the end of the hallway. A figure, hunched and pale, its limbs too long, its head lolling to one side. It was wearing a tattered hospital gown, the fabric stained dark with something that wasn't water. It didn't move, just stood there, its eyes hidden in shadow. The whispers surged, a chorus, deafening now, filling my head with words I couldn't understand but felt in my bones. Stay, stay, stay. I ran, my flashlight bouncing wildly, the beam catching glimpses of more figures in the doorways, pale, silent, watching. The air was thick, pressing against me like the hospital itself was trying to hold me back. I reached the stairwell, taking the steps 2 at a time, but the dragging sound followed, closer now, relentless. Back in the lobby, I grabbed my sleeping bag, my hands fumbling, and sprinted for the front door. The rain was a wall outside, cold and stinging, but I didn't care. I burst into the storm, the whispers fading but not gone, echoing in my head like a bad dream. My phone was useless, the screen black, and I realized I'd left my car keys inside. I wasn't going back. Hey, my viewers, are you still awake? Comment number 2 if you are still feeling safe and want to listen. Tonight will be interesting, and you will sleep well while listening to this story. I ran down the road, the hospital looming behind me, its windows like empty eyes. The rain soaked me to the bone, but it felt clean, like it was washing something away. I don't know how long I ran, but eventually I saw headlights. Jake and Sarah, earlier than planned, their faces pale as I stumbled into the car. "You okay?" Jake asked, his voice tight. "You look like you saw a ghost." I didn't answer. I couldn't. The whispers were gone, but I could still feel them, lingering at the edge of my mind. We drove in silence, the rain a steady drumbeat, and I kept my eyes on the road, afraid to look back. Weeks later, I tried to research St. Agnes, Ward C specifically. The records were scarce, but I found a brief article from 1992, buried in a local paper's archives. It mentioned a scandal. Patients in Ward C, mostly women, subjected to experimental treatments, restrained for days, sometimes weeks. The hospital closed soon after, the ward sealed off. No one knew what happened to the patients. They just disappeared. I never went back to St. Agnes. I don't talk about that night, not even to Jake and Sarah. But when it rains, I hear it sometimes, a faint whisper, calling my name, pulling me back to that forgotten ward. And I wonder if
Stormy Night Stories, Tale 4, The Light on Blackthorn Hill. Hey guys, you still with me? Curled up in the dark, listening to the rain? Haven't drifted off yet, have you? Welcome to the 4th tale of our stormy night, The Light on Blackthorn Hill. Imagine yourself tucked under warm blankets, the world outside softened by the steady patter of rain on your window. You're safe, cozy, but out there, in the storm-swept hills of West Virginia, something flickers in the darkness, calling to those who dare to look. Take a deep breath. Let the day slip away, and let's climb the shadowed slopes of Blackthorn Hill. The rain came down in sheets, turning the dirt road to Blackthorn Hill into a river of mud. I was in my pickup, the wipers struggling to keep up, as I headed toward the old lighthouse in the hills above Elkins, West Virginia. Most folks don't know there's a lighthouse out here, miles from any coast, perched on a ridge like a forgotten sentinel. It hadn't worked in decades, not since the coal mines closed and the town dwindled, but the locals still talked about it, about the light that sometimes flickered on stormy nights, drawing people who never came back.
I wasn't here for ghost stories. My cousin Danny had gone missing 3 days ago, last seen hiking near the hill. The sheriff's search had turned up nothing, and the storm wasn't helping. But I knew Danny, stubborn, curious, always chasing some half-baked adventure. He'd been obsessed with the lighthouse, said he'd found old journals in the library about strange happenings there in the 70s. I didn't believe in that nonsense, but I wasn't leaving without him. The road ended at the base of the hill, and I parked, grabbing my flashlight and raincoat. The wind howled, tearing at my hood, and the rain stung my face like needles. The air smelled of wet earth and something metallic, like rust. Halfway up, I found Danny's backpack, soaked and abandoned in the mud. My stomach twisted, but I kept going, calling his name into the storm. No answer. Just the rain and the wind screaming back. The lighthouse loomed ahead, a skeletal tower of brick and iron, its lens long shattered. The door hung open, swaying in the gusts, and a faint glow pulsed from inside. Not steady, but flickering, like a heartbeat. I hesitated, my boots sinking into the mud. Every instinct told me to turn back, but Danny was all I had left. I stepped inside. The air was colder than it should have been, heavy with the stench of mildew and something sour, like spoiled meat. My flashlight beam swept the room, catching rusted stairs spiraling up to the lantern room. The walls were covered in scratches, not random, but deliberate. Patterns, symbols, like the ones Danny had shown me in his sketches. They seemed to writhe in the flickering light, and I swear I heard a low hum, barely audible over the rain. "Danny!" I called, my voice echoing up the tower. Nothing, but then a sound, soft, like bare feet on wet stone, coming from above. I started up the stairs, each step creaking under my weight. The hum grew louder, vibrating in my chest, and with it came whispers, too faint to understand but heavy with intent. "Look, look, look." At the top, the lantern room was empty, the broken lens letting in rain pour. But the light was there, pulsing from the center of the room, not from any bulb, but from something else. It was a sphere of pale, sickly light, floating a foot off the floor, its edges shimmering like oil on water. I couldn't look away. It felt alive, pulling at me, like it was peeling back my thoughts, exposing every fear I'd ever buried. I tore my eyes away, my head pounding, and I saw something on the floor. Danny's jacket, torn and stained with something dark. My heart sunk, but before I could move, the whisper sharpened, forming words. "See, see, us." The light pulsed faster, and shapes began to form in it. Faces, distorted, their mouths open in silent screams. I recognized one. Danny. His eyes were wide open, pleading, but they weren't his anymore. They were hollow, like the light had taken something vital from him. I tore my eyes away, my head pounding, and I saw something on the floor. Danny's jacket, torn and stained with something dark. My heart sunk, but before I could move, the whisper sharpened, forming words. "See, see, us."
The light pulsed faster, and shapes began to form in it. Faces, distorted, their mouths open in silent screams. I recognized one. Danny. His eyes were wide open, pleading, but they weren't his anymore. They were hollow, like the light had taken something vital from him. I tore my eyes away, my flashlight slipping from my hand. It hit the floor, the beam spinning wildly, and in its light, I saw them. Figures, dozens of them, pressed against the walls, their bodies pale and twisted, their limbs too long, their faces blurred but familiar. Miners, maybe, or hikers, or anyone who'd climbed this hill and never came down. They didn't move, but their eyes followed me, and the hum became a chorus, deafening, urging me to step closer to the light. I don't know how I found the strength, but I turned and I ran, the stairs shaking under me. The whispers chased me, clawing at my mind, promising answers, promising Danny if I just looked back. I didn't. I couldn't. I burst out into the storm, the rain washing over me, grounding me. The hill felt alive, the ground shifting under my feet like it was trying to pull me back. I slid down the path, thorns tearing at my skin, until I reached my truck. I drove, the lighthouse fading in my rearview mirror, its light still pulsing against the storm. I didn't stop until I hit Elkins, pulling into a gas station, my hands shaking so bad I could barely hold the wheel. I called the sheriff, told them about Danny's backpack, his jacket, but I didn't mention the light. How could I? They'd think I was crazy. The search continued for weeks, but Danny was never found. The lighthouse was boarded up, declared a hazard, but I heard the rumors. Lights still seen on stormy nights, whispers carried on the wind. I moved away to Pittsburgh, trying to forget, but when it rains, I hear it, faint and insistent. Look, look, look. And sometimes, in the dark, I see that light, flickering at the edge of my vision, waiting for me to climb the hill again. Maybe some lights aren't meant to be followed. Some truths better left in the dark. You're safe here, wrapped in your blankets, the rain a soft song outside. Let the whispers fade. Let the night hold you gently. Just breathe and let yourself drift. Close your eyes. The storm will guide you to sleep tonight. That's the fourth tale of our stormy night.
Hey guys, you still there? Tucked away in the dark, listening to me whisper through the rain. Haven't drifted off to sleep yet, have you? You're quite the hero for staying up all this time. Don't forget to comment #2 if you're still feeling safe inside. Welcome to the fifth tale of our stormy night, The Voice in the Static. Picture yourself cozy under your blankets, the rain tapping softly on your window, a gentle lullaby pulling you toward rest. But out there, in the storm's hum, something else is calling, hidden in the static of a forgotten radio. Take a deep breath, let the day slip away, and let's tune into the shadows of a small town in Nebraska. The rain battered the roof of my trailer, a tinny drumbeat that filled the air in Broken Bow, Nebraska. I was holed up for the night, the storm turning the dirt roads to sludge and cutting me off from the rest of the world. I'd moved here a month ago, chasing a job at the grain mill, but tonight I was just trying to stay warm. The trailer was old, its walls thin, and the cold seeped in despite the space heater humming in the corner. I sat on the sagging couch, a beer in hand, flipping through channels on an ancient radio I found in the trailer's storage closet. It was one of those old AM/FM sets, all knobs and dials, the kind my grandpa used to tinker with. Most stations were static, the storm scrambling the signals, but I liked the white noise. It drowned out the wind's howl and made the place feel less empty. I was half asleep, the rain lulling me, when the radio crackled and a voice cut through the static. It was faint, a woman's voice, soft and urgent. "Can you hear me? Please, help." I sat up, the beer slipping from my hand and hitting the floor. The voice faded, swallowed by static, but it was real. I was sure of it. I twisted the dial, trying to find the station again, but all I got was noise, sharp and grating, like the storm was laughing at me. I told myself it was a prank, some late-night DJ messing with listeners, but my skin prickled, and the trailer felt smaller, the shadows deeper. I turned the volume up, leaning closer, and the voice came again, clearer this time. "I'm here, trapped, please." The words were clipped, like they were being pulled through a bad connection. I grabbed a notebook, scribbling what I heard, my hand shaking. The voice didn't sound like a recording. It was too raw, too desperate. I checked my phone, thinking I'd call the local station, but the screen showed no signal. The storm must have knocked out the tower. I was alone, just me, the radio, and that voice. I turned the dial again, slow and deliberate, and found her once more. "They're watching. Don't look. Don't look." The words sent a chill down my spine, and I glanced at the window, half expecting to see eyes staring back through the rain-streaked glass. Nothing but darkness. The trailer creaked, the wind rattling the walls, and I felt it, a presence, like someone was standing just behind me. I spun around, heart pounding, but the room was empty. The radio hissed, the voice gone, replaced by a low hum that vibrated in my chest. I switched it off, the silence heavier than the storm, but the hum didn't stop. It was outside now, faint, coming from the field behind the trailer. I grabbed my flashlight and a kitchen knife, telling myself I was being paranoid, but unable to shake the feeling that something was wrong. I cracked the door open, the rain hitting me like a slap, and shined the beam into the field. The cornstalks swayed in the wind, their wet leaves glinting like blades. Nothing else. No movement, no eyes, just the storm. Then I heard it, a soft thump against the trailer's wall, like something had brushed past. I swung the flashlight, my breath catching, and caught a glimpse of something, tall, thin, moving too fast to be human. It vanished into the corn, the stalks closing behind it, like a curtain. The hum was louder now, pulsing in time with the rain, and I heard the voice again, not from the radio, but from the air itself. "Don't look, they see you." I slammed the door shut, locking it, my hands trembling. The knife felt useless, a toy against whatever was out there. I turned the radio back on, desperate for something normal, but the static was alive now, weaving with whispers, not just one voice, but many, overlapping, pleading, "Help, trapped, don't look." I yanked the plug from the wall, but the radio stayed on, the voices growing louder, filling the trailer.
The lights flickered, the space heater sputtering, and the air grew cold. So cold I could see my breath. I backed towards the couch, clutching the knife, my eyes darting to the windows. The rain was a roar, but beneath it, I heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate, circling the trailer. They weren't human steps. They were too heavy, too uneven, like something dragging itself through the mud. I don't know why I did it, but I spoke to the radio, my voice shaking. "Who are you? What do you want?" The whisper stopped, the silence so sudden it felt like a weight. Then a single voice, clear and close, like she was sitting next to me. "They took us, in the field. They're still here." I remembered the stories I'd heard at the mill, old-timers talking about the fields behind my trailer. Decades ago, people had gone missing there. Workers, kids, even a sheriff's deputy. The town called it bad luck, said the field was cursed, but no one knew why. I'd laughed it off, but now, with the radio humming and the footsteps outside, it didn't seem so funny. The window above the sink shattered, glass spraying across the counter. I screamed, dropping the knife as rain poured in, carrying that metallic smell, stronger now. The hum was deafening, vibrating in my bones, and the voices were a chorus, chanting my name, Tom, Tom, Tom. I grabbed the flashlight, my hand slick with flet, and ran for the bedroom, slamming the door behind me. I shoved the dresser against the door, my heart hammering, and crouched in the corner, the flashlight shaking in my grip. The footsteps stopped, but the hum didn't, and I could feel them, whatever they were, outside, pressing against the trailer, their presence heavy, like a storm within the storm. The radio, still unplugged, crackled to life in the other room, the woman's voice pleading, "Run, now, they're coming." I didn't think. I grabbed my keys, shoved the dresser aside, and bolted for the front door. The rain hit me like a wall, cold and relentless, but I ran, slipping in the mud, the cornfield looming to my left. I didn't look at it, didn't dare, but I felt them, eyes in the stalks, watching, waiting. I reached my truck, fumbling with the keys, and dove inside, the engine roaring as I peeled out onto the road. The hum faded as I drove, the rain blurring the windshield, but the voices stayed with me, faint and distant, like a signal I couldn't quite lose. I never went back to the trailer. I quit the mill job on the phone, moved to Lincoln, and tried to forget. But I kept the radio, locked in a box in my closet, too scared to throw it away. Sometimes, on stormy nights, I hear it, a faint hum, a whisper in the static, calling my name. And I wonder if they're still out there, in the field, waiting for me to tune in again. Maybe some voices aren't meant to be answered, some signals better left unheard. You're safe here, wrapped in your blankets, the rain a gentle lullaby outside. Let the static fade, let the night carry you away. Just breathe and let yourself drift. Close your eyes, the storm will keep you safe tonight. That's the 5th tale of our stormy night. Subscribe for more chilling stories to guide you into the dark.
Hey guys, you still there? Nestled in the dark, listening to the rain's soft whispers? Haven't drifted off yet, have you? Welcome to the 6th tale of our stormy night, The Guest at Willow Creek. Imagine yourself cozy in bed, the rain pattering gently on your window, wrapping you in a warm, safe cocoon. But out there, in a quiet bed and breakfast in the hills of Tennessee, someone, or something, checks in on a stormy night. Take a slow, deep breath, let the day fade, and let's step into the flickering candlelight of Willow Creek. The rain was a curtain of silver, cloaking the winding roads of the Smoky Mountains as I drove toward Willow Creek Bed and Breakfast, a quaint, ivy-covered house tucked away near Gatlinburg, Tennessee. I'd inherited the place from my aunt, who'd run it for decades before passing last winter. I wasn't much for hospitality, but the bills were piling up, so I decided to keep it open through the off-season. Tonight, I was expecting no one. The storm had kept tourists away, and the phone hadn't rung in days. The house was old, its wooden floors creaking under every step, and the air carried the faint scent of lavender and dust. I was in the parlor, stoking the fire, when the front door's bell jingled. I froze, the poker heavy in my hand. No one should be out in this weather, not this late, not without a reservation. I set the poker down and crossed to the foyer, my boots thudding against the floor. A woman stood just inside the door, her raincoat dripping on the rug. She was tall, her face half hidden by a hood, but her eyes caught the lamplight, pale, almost silver, like the rain itself. "I need a room," she said, her voice soft but steady, like she was used to being heard. The storm caught me on the road. I hesitated, something about her setting my nerves on edge, but I couldn't turn her away in this weather. "Sure," I said, forcing a smile. "Let me get you signed in." "Name?" "Clara," she said, peeling off her coat. Her dress was old-fashioned, high-necked, like something from a vintage photograph, and her skin was too pale, almost translucent. "Just Clara." I handed her the guest book, noticing her fingers, long, thin, with nails that looked too sharp. She signed with a flourish, her handwriting looping and elegant, and handed it back without a word. I led her to room 3, the only one ready, and gave her the key. "Breakfast's at 8. Holler if you need anything." She nodded, her eyes lingering on me a moment too long before she slipped into the room and closed the door. The house felt quieter after that, the rain's steady drone the only sound. I went back to the parlor, trying to shake the unease crawling up my spine. Just a weary traveler, I told myself, nothing more. But as I settled by the fire, I heard it. A soft hum, like a lullaby, coming from upstairs. It wasn't loud, but it carried, weaving through the rain's rhythm. I checked the guest book, curious, and saw her entry. Clara. No surname, no address, just her name. And beside it, a tiny sketch of a willow tree, its branches curling like fingers. My aunt used to talk about the willows by the creek behind the house, said they'd been there longer than the town, older than memory. I never paid it much mind, but now it felt wrong. The hum stopped, replaced by a faint creak like someone pacing in room 3. I told myself it was just the house settling, but my hands were clammy as I climbed the stairs to check. The hallway was dark, the single bulb flickering, and the air was colder than it should be, like stepping into a freezer.
I knocked on Clara's door, my voice shaky. "Is everything okay in there?" No answer. The creaking stopped, and for a moment, there was nothing but the rain. Then, a soft whisper. So soft, I thought I'd imagined it. It came from behind the door. But it wasn't Clara's voice. Or maybe it was, but twisted, layered, like many voices speaking at once. I turned the knob, my heart pounding, but the door was locked. I fumbled for the master key, my hands shaking, and opened it. The room was empty. The bed was untouched. The window closed. But the air was thick with that lavender scent, stronger now, mixed with something metallic, like blood. On the nightstand, where I'd left a welcome basket of muffins, was a single willow leaf, fresh and green, as if plucked moments ago. I backed out, locking the door, and checked the other rooms, the kitchen, the cellar. Nothing. Clara was gone, but her coat still hung in the foyer, dripping like it never dried. I grabbed my phone to call the sheriff, but the screen was dead, the battery drained despite being fully charged an hour ago. The rain seemed louder now, almost angry, and the hum was back, coming from outside, near the creek. I didn't want to go out there, but something pulled at me, like a thread tugging my chest. I grabbed a flashlight and my aunt's old hunting knife, its blade nicked but sharp, and stepped into the storm. The rain stung my face, the wind tearing at my jacket, but I followed the hum, my boots sinking into the mud by the creek. The willows loomed ahead, their branches swaying like arms, and in their shadows, I saw her, Clara, standing ankle deep in the water, her dress untouched by the rain. She turned, her eyes glowing faintly, and smiled, her teeth too sharp, too many. "You came," she whispered, her voice everywhere, in the rain, in the wind, in my head. The willows moved, not with the wind, but against it, their branches reaching, curling toward me. I saw shapes in the water, faces, hands, pressing against the surface like they were trapped beneath glass. I ran, the knife slipping from my hand, the flashlight beam bouncing wildly. The hum chased me, the voices louder, calling my name, "Lila, Lila, Lila." I reached the house, slamming the door, and barricaded it with a chair. The hum stopped, but the air was heavy, the lavender smell choking me. I checked the guest book again, my hands trembling, and found her entry gone, the page blank except for that willow sketch, now larger, its branches spreading across the paper. I didn't sleep that night. I sat by the fire, the knife back in my hand, listening to the rain. At dawn, the storm cleared, and the house felt normal again. The lavender scent gone. Clara's coat was missing, the guest book clean, no trace of the sketch. I told myself it was a dream, a trick of the storm, but I found a willow leaf in my pocket, fresh and green, as if it had been placed there moments ago. I sold the bed and breakfast a month later, moved to Knoxville, and never went back. But on rainy nights, I hear it. A faint hum, a whisper in the dark, calling me to the creek. And sometimes, in the mirror, I see a shadow behind me, pale and smiling, waiting for me to turn around.
maybe some guests never check out. Some invitations better left unanswered. You're safe here, tucked in your blankets, the rain a soft song outside. Let the hum fade. Let the night wrap you gently. Just breathe and let yourself drift. Close your eyes. The storm will hold